our new um Carrie, do you want to kick off with some of our new members and we can go around, do a little round robin, or how do you want to do that?
Sure, I can share the news now that the hearings have actually happened just this week. There's legislative days this week. I can share a little summary about each of the new four appointees. I will, clarify that they are not voting members yet. There's still a few processes that have to happen with sending in their oath and so forth. In the hearing, I believe the nomination hearing was Wednesday and the confirmation was yesterday. So I don't believe that they'll be, they don't have start dates yet, but will in time for October meeting. But I did want to now that those have happened, share publicly who the new members are. How about I go through and just give a summary, and then those that are here can then say hi and introduce themselves. So really quick, Carrie Vandecovering, she is joining us from Clackamas Social Services. She's a human services coordinator there. She is a member of the National Senior Corps Advisory Council, the Senior Serving Oregon Coalition, and is essentially the AmeriCorps Seniors Program Coordinator at Clackamas County. And that's a relationship that we've been really wanting to strengthen and bring back some representation onto the commission. So we are really excited to have her join us. A few other cool things about Carrie. She's a founding member of founder actually of Building Blocks for Kids, which is a nonprofit that connects children in foster care to extracurricular activities so they don't miss out on things like dance and music lessons and tutoring and sports and science camp and outdoor school and all that stuff. So very cool volunteerism background that she has, and lifetime public service background. Dr. Latrissa Nieworth is also a new member. I don't believe she was able to attend today, but I'm not tracking now who's joined. So she is here. She can introduce herself later, but she is Dean of the School of Business, Leadership, and Technology at Bushnell. She has over 30 years of experience in academia, business leadership, public service, a lot of work around overseeing like curriculum development, strategic planning, accreditation. When her and I were first talking during the interview, she mentioned she was really interested around credit for service. And I was like, in like hiring parties and stuff. And I was like, yes, those are my passions. So I think that she's going to just bring a lot of really great connections and passion around that kind of work to the commission as well. Um, and she's a former newscaster. I mean, she has done a lot. Named top 100 visionary in education in 2021. So just a lot of really neat experiences, leadership roles in state government, a lot of community service, producing documentaries. I mean, I told her, I was like, I just have a Renaissance person here. So very excited to have Dr. Neuwirth join us. Craig Wyrell was actually on the meeting last month. But I don't know that we got to, I don't know that we learned much about Craig, but I want to share a little bit about him today. He is both an AmeriCorps and Peace Corps alumni, has a long public policy, public service, volunteerism, civic engagement background. He founded The Way Out, which is a startup focused on reducing hiring discrimination, supporting justice-involved job seekers. He served as a community fund portfolio manager for Mozilla, with a focus on promoting digital inclusion. He worked as a domestic policy intern in the White House and something focusing on initiatives for rural communities. And something really fun that he shared with me is that when our current AmeriCorps CEO was leading my brother's keeper Obama's foundation, they were just down the hall from each other, their offices. So they actually go way back, which is pretty cool. So he has just held roles in higher education, career coaching, research positions. He was a 20 under 40 rising business star, background in grant making, nonprofit leadership. So just a lot, again, just a really diverse background, but committed to social services, community engagement, community development, and public service. So really excited to have him join us. And then finally, I hope it's not weird, Susan, you're here and I'm going to talk about you. But so Susan is also an AmeriCorps alumni. She has over 20 years of experience in higher education, nonprofit management, public service. Fulbright scholar, certified fundraising executive, has her master's in public administration, and is a senior fellow with American Leadership Forum of Oregon. What I learned about Susan just from talking to her and with what she sent in with her application and resume is that she's a really strong passion for community service and really helping resources to under-resourced communities and programs and individuals, and specifically using her talents to in fundraising. She's raised over or secured over $61 million for communities and programs, which I'm still just like blown away by when I think about that. And just really passionate about grant development, nonprofit leadership, and particularly around equitable development. And so really excited to have her join us. I'll hand it over to her to share a little bit more and introduce herself if there's something else she would like to highlight. But again, just really amazing, vast, experience and background that we're really happy to have her and everyone else join the commission as new members.
Susan, would you like to share anything else?
Not particularly, but thank you for that kind introduction. That was very nice. I'm just excited to be here and listen and learn from all of you. And that's why I'm here for now.
Well, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us today. And sounds like a great group of new members growing our board here. So just for sake of time, because we got a little bit of a late start, I see we've all got our names in here and you can see who staff are. So we're going to move through this agenda real quickly here. Just a quick review. There are a few pieces that we need to get through with the consent agenda, our chair and vice chair slate, some informational items from Carrie, and then we're moving the agenda around a little bit because we have a presentation from Casey Reynolds from Ask. He's actually going to join us closer to 12 o'clock noon. So we're going to bump things around a little bit. We have a few discussion items, informational items, discussion items, Casey's presentation, and then we'll have our closing. And I'm always about keeping us on time, so we will adjourn by 12:30 at the latest. So thank you everyone for being here today. With respect to, do we need to do a roll call? How do we want to go about doing that?
Essentially, that's just a moment for Kelly to confirm for you whether you have quorum or not. I think it's.
Do we have a quorum?
We have met quorum, yes.
Okay, great. And do we have anybody on for public comment, or did we receive any public comment? No.
We did not.
Okay, great. So an approval item is our August 24th meeting minutes. So those were in our board packet, the minutes for review from our last meeting, which was just a month ago. And if I can get approval of those minutes, if anybody wants to go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Is that Shanika? Thank you. And a second?
This is Greg. I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. And we'll go ahead, those in approval of the meeting minutes from August 24th. Those of you that are aye, if you want to put your hand up, that's fine too. That's fine. Any nays? All right. Thank you for doing that. And then moving through here, consent agenda approval items. So you can see within our consent agenda, also in the board packet, was our OregonServes staff reports. Thank you folks for doing those. It's always so good to hear what your experiences are, what you're working on. And so if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes those staff reports.
I'll make the motion
All
again.
right, thank you again, Shanika. And a second?
Hey, this is Jayesh. I'm willing to second.
Thank you, Jayesh. And those who are in support of approving the consent agenda, just show of hands for aye. Okay, any nays or abstention? Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Let's move forward, and this chair and vice chair slate, Carrie, you're actually going to take it. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yeah, so as part of today's agenda, we have on here the task of selecting leadership for the commission board. Per our bylaws, we are set up as part of the executive team to include a chair and a vice chair position. And I would like the commission to approve Heidi as the chair and Daniel as the vice chair. Both are in their second terms with the commission. And have around 6 months and 1 year left in their second terms of service respectively, which would bring us through under their leadership through this next legislative session, the state service development and so forth. And I think they both really have exhibited or demonstrated strong commitment to the commission, the skills that I think we're looking for in our leadership with a dedication to public service, strong communication and collaboration backgrounds, have been with us for a while, got familiar with our strategic goals, and I think would be just excellent leaders for us moving forward, and also would work really well together as a team, as they've actually worked together in the past, and have known each other for a while. So I think as we are, as I said, looking at the successful development and implementation of our strategic priorities and so forth, with their experience in leadership, public service, and that they would just make great candidates as chair and vice chair. So I would ask the board to approve those nominations. And that would mean that somebody else needs to make a motion.
Somebody else needs to make a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve Heidi and Daniel as vice chair and chair.
Thank you, Greg. Second? Anyone for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shanika.
Good, you're making all the motions today. We appreciate it.
And with that then, so a show of hands for approval of the chair and vice chair slate. Those in approvals, aye, your hands raised. And those who are nays, raise your hands or abstain. Okay. Thank you so much for that. And it's an honor. And a little history about Daniel and I knew Daniel before he was on this commission, and he was an AmeriCorps member. And we got to work together through his work as AmeriCorps member. So it's a really cool, like, full circle experience. I was so excited when he was interested in being on the commission, but then now to serve with you, it's a pleasure. So. And thank you, everyone. Wonderful. So moving forward, Carrie, it looks like you have the informational items.
I do. This is one of those meetings where I end up I'm doing a lot of talking for the next a little while. So bear with me. I'll cover both some informational and discussion items today. What I wanted to share first under the informational items is that a new bill, a new act was introduced just on the 12th by Senator Coons, who has previously introduced a couple of acts looking to address some of the issues within the statute of AmeriCorps that are items that are, I'd say we would identify as either holding back expansion of service or a barrier to service, either for a person to serve or for an organization to implement an AmeriCorps program. So there's been the CORE Act and a few other acts that I know you've heard I've mentioned over the last few years. So this act that was introduced and sponsored by Senator Coons, I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of, is called the Promoting Service Through AmeriCorps Act. There are multiple documents in your packet, and I can also really quickly put some links in here for those. But in summary, the act is going to address quite a few things, but the highlights that I would share is that there would be an introduction of some more positions that would provide more variety for people to serve. So one of those would be a 1,500-hour position. This means that just more people who, if this matches up with their availability, would be able to serve. So there's an introduction of this additional position. It would also extend the age range for the NCCC program. Currently, if you don't know too much about NCCC, it's a residential program, 17 to 24. This would increase the age that it would actually be 17 to 26. Another item to highlight that I think is really important, and this is a big issue that we're hearing from partners that we would like, or potential partners, that we would like to see run a program. I will share that a couple of programs have actually left AmeriCorps, either our grantees or other branches of AmeriCorps in Oregon because of this issue. But it would one of the items in here is that they would increase the cap of the federal share of grantee administrative costs from 5 to 10%. What we have heard, which is great, is going to be a really nice change. What we have heard from many nonprofits and other entities that we know want to serve or run an AmeriCorps program is that this is a very hard program for them, and is insofar as administrative costs, because often their actual federal approved rate for their indirect cost is like 19%. And so not being able to charge, that higher rate can actually be a burden for them, and limit their options with running a program. So we've actually had some that have chosen not to continue after years of running an AmeriCorps program, as this just isn't fiscally working for them. So the 5 to 10% is not fully getting up to what might be a standard rate for most people, but it is certainly broadening that and an increase, and will hopefully make a big difference. Another item to share is that with the Volunteer Generation Fund, they would also align those match requirements and administrative requirements to entities that receive that funding. So it wouldn't just be, AmeriCorps, state and national, and so forth. One of the things I'm really excited about this is that it would create an office alumni engagement, which would just be amazing. Alumni engagement is so important, and a lot of times for commissions to be able to implement those types of programming or services, it really depends on capacity. We're one of those commissions that doesn't have a ton of capacity for this, so we're sort of doing some basics, but we would love to expand that. Would love to strengthen that engagement with alumni, be able to support them in whatever that pathway is after AmeriCorps, if that's continuing education, employment, and so forth. It'd be great to be able to elevate how they leverage their AmeriCorps experience, what they did next, and also be able to establish more, I think, like follow-up communication, so for research and data purposes. And just be able to have just way more engagement with them. So I'm really excited to see that there will be actual office alumni engagement, especially as we see that service years is continuing some of their alumni services that they offer, which they've been doing for a really long time, are sort of the main alumni entity right now. Standardizing terms for board members, they can serve a 5-year term that runs with the calendar. I'm going to admit I'm not sure which board members are talking about, if they're talking about AmeriCorps ones or commission board members. So I have more follow-up to do on that one. Another thing that is really interesting is that there's some expansion to utilization of the education awards. So I'm sure many of you know that if a person that is 55 or older serves and earns an education award by statute, they can actually transfer that to a child, a foster child, grandchild, and so forth. The new provision in this act would remove that age limit and the relationship limitation. So currently it has to be somebody related to them, or in part of their family circle. And this would change that so that it could be any designated individual, which I think is fascinating and just really interesting. And I'd be curious to, see, how that might broaden people who might be interested to serve, knowing that this is something they can earn and share. So that is very cool. There's also a flexibility for the education award, looking at really adding to or creating an impact of the education award for people in sort of that career development piece for them, their goal attainment around career development and next steps. They want to not only broaden the usage of this for non-traditional educational opportunities like industry credentialing, which is just a really great thing to see, but also increase the time limit from 7 years to 10 years. And I imagine that was probably based on looking at some of that alumni data and looking at some of that education award data and seeing, how people use that, or how many couldn't use it in that time limit because maybe there are other like parts of their pathway that added to the time for when they would decide to use the award. So giving people more time so they don't lose that award is really fantastic. But also just seeing that it can be used on more non-traditional educational opportunities is also really great. Increasing the award limit. So this would be providing four full-time equivalent education award, aligning it with the 4-time limit on terms of service. Another one is alignment of benefits. There's different benefits that different branches have, like, so they would, Vista has some additional things that maybe ASN doesn't have. So they would be aligning those benefits a little bit better, and allowing the reduced payment in lieu of the education award. So what that means is that if you serve as a Vista, you can choose a reduced stipend or the education award. So this would provide that option to everybody. And then another one is providing federal non-competitive hiring eligibility for AmeriCorps members, which is also very exciting. Currently, only Vista has federal hiring priority, basically. So this would be for all AmeriCorps members. So I'm really, really excited for that, especially as state hiring priority is also something that we're very interested in. So it's nice to see that some of these things would happen in tangent. The only thing that's not on here that would have been maybe nice to see would have been the federal removing federal taxes, the education award. That didn't make it on, but no, not dissing what did make it on there. Maybe that one just doesn't have the support right now. But I think that is still, remaining on the list as a priority. But these other ones I think are really, really great, and very excited to see where this could go. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this and how, some of the impacts positively that it could have as far as our goals for increasing access to service. And this was something that I know Oregon representatives are aware of. And so maybe we'll end up seeing one of them sponsored as well, which would be great. I see Jayesh's question. I don't know if there's any other questions, or not question, statement, I guess. Did you want to share anything else, Jayesh? She wrote, I feel like broadening who can receive the education award would create a risk of people selling the education award.
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that, that was the first thing that came across in my mind, if it's broadened beyond direct family members, like people sell all sorts of other government benefits, so I was like, ooh, I would hate to see that sort of bad press come from the Siegel education grant, but that was other than that, I like what I see in this bill. Do the chances of it passing are?
No. I would love to have a crystal ball or magic 8 ball for that, but no. I don't know. We will see. We will see. Yeah, you say that, Jayesh, like there isn't always a lot of red tape or different requirements for these things. We're talking about government here. I'm sure there will be some provisions in place to prevent stuff like that, but I hadn't even thought of that. So that is an interesting point to bring up. But if I hear more about implementation of it to that point, I definitely will share back.
Looks like Shanika, you've got a question maybe?
Is there
Or
anything
comment.
we can comment, or both actually? Is there anything we can do to support and champion this bill? Because I also think it's a really, really good idea. It sounds like it's removing some barriers and addressing some barriers, and nothing like trying to get more folks involved with AmeriCorps. So is there anything we can do as commission members to champion or anything like that for this?
Yes, relating back to last month's conversation about around what commission members can and can't do. You may contact people following those guidelines to share your support of it. Specifically representatives for sponsorship or their attention of it, utilizing any of the communication channels that those representatives have available, emailing or calling and so forth, attending town halls or any other way that you would want to have contact with them, following the guidelines that were shared last month around outreach on these things and requests. Additionally, there are likely some opportunities, again, private citizens that through states for service and things like that, which we could ask Casey about that actually a little bit later.
Daniel? Oh, I'm sorry, Shanika, did you have something else? Okay, that was it. Daniel, I see your hand.
Yeah, just a couple comments. One is, oh, I had so many a second ago. One is, from my understanding, this would be the portion of being able to transfer the award would just be an expansion of a option that already exists. So I would be curious what the tracking mechanisms are, because like Carrie said, I think even if you transfer it, the recipient will then be on record receiving the money. So I think I'd be curious to see what that all looks like in regards to an expansion. But I think it sounds like there are some safeguards in there to prevent some sort of fraud activity. To Shanika's question, they brought up a good point of how we can support, but I'm also wondering about timeline. When is this going to be introduced, or has it already been introduced, or when does the next session start? And then the third part is more of a, let me make sure that I'm understanding correctly, but I believe this bill will pass because it has to pass in order for some programs to continue in its operation. I think the bigger question is, will this bill pass in its entirety? And I think that's what's like left to be seen of what amendments are proposed to make it past the finish line. But what I do understand is, importantly, it does need to pass in order for some programs to continue operating as they currently are as well. It's the new pieces that may or may not make it through committee and session, if I'm understanding correctly.
Thank you. Daniel, I can address some of those. It was introduced on the 12th. Maybe while Casey's talking, I can do a little bit of research, a little bit on going into the bill page to see if there's any hearings scheduled, this or that. So I'm not sure what the next step is going to be with it. Regarding needing to pass, so I'm not, I am not sure about that, because part of this is reauthorizing the national service laws through 2029. Instead of, I think right now it says through 20, or it had previously been through 2025. My understanding is that the laws have needed to be reauthorized for quite a while. But that also, there's a lot of federal statute that needs authorization and is sort of just like in status quo. And a lot of times people don't want to bring it up for authorization and just sort of like, well, it can still operate if it didn't have an end date. Because then that puts it up for basically like it's a risk, because then that means the whole entire thing can be like reevaluated and this and that. And I had understood that maybe that's why a reauthorization hadn't occurred before, but I would need to get a little bit more information. Again, maybe we should ask Casey that when he's on too. He would probably know around, you know, that piece of what would not be able to operate if this didn't pass. Because I just don't have a ton of information about that. I will mention though, as you, in addition to what you had mentioned about the education award, just a reminder that people don't get the money themselves for the education award. That goes directly to the student loan provider, or that's being paid back, or the school. So the money is still held at the trust, and then is the trust actually pays the chosen entity. So it's not going to just go straight to a person. So I think that that's probably you know, one of the big pieces, again, that as you pointed out, that there would be like mechanisms in place for the tracking, which would happen through the trust, and then also for usage. So
Jayesh, you have something?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just be quick. In looking at the the text that Carrie posted, I don't see a Senate number attached to it. It appears to be, you know, I'm assuming that that's the yeah, well,
Senate Bill 5053.
well, then the full text that you the link in the all right. I was I was just going to suggest so yeah, I guess that the link that you posted is a little old. All right, cool.
yeah, like sake of time, I will follow up with you all with some additional information around the timeline.
Okay. I was going to say the one thing that we can do as commissioners is we could at least encourage our senators to look at it and possibly co-sponsor it. Senator Merkley has been a very big proponent of national service programs, and I could see him being a very good fit, and so yeah, the websites are a pretty easy way to fire off communications with them.
That's a great idea too, Jayesh. Oh, sorry, I see your hand up, your hand raised also.
There you are. You're off mute.
Sorry, that was an accident.
No worries, no worries. I do remember in the past too, Carrie, we have signed off on, the commission as a whole has signed off on supporting certain bills, acts, blah, blah, blah. Might that be something we also do, or is that?
May I ask if I could provide some of that clarification at the next meeting?
Okay. And what if we want to, we could ask Casey a few questions if need be too. But yes, that would be great, because our next meeting is on the 11th. Is that right?
The 11th.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just right around the corner. That'd be perfect.
Because we were providing this guidance around like what you can do as a private citizen, but mentioned that you were on the commission and then informed by service on the commission. But this like adding names to, you know, things is something I would like to talk about a little bit further and have better, like less grade.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, great discussion. It sounds like there's a lot of interest from us to help move this act forward. Carrie, do you want to talk about bridging and belonging?
Yeah, how am I doing on time?
You are, well, you have up until noon when Casey joins us, so you have about 20 minutes. Because you're going to go from your informational to discussion items.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something very quick about bridging and belonging because I need the time for the other three. So bridging and belonging, I'll just really quickly mention you have a document in your packet around that. I wanted to provide information about that and let you know more about that because This is a White House and an AmeriCorps initiative that was introduced last year. And what occurred is that there was an AmeriCorps fellow that was doing the development for this over the past year. They did this as a pilot with the Utah Service Commission and with programs there. And Bridging and Belonging, if you're not familiar, is sort of an adjacent DEIA initiative. It's really looking at how you can cross divisions, cross divides, with people who maybe you don't share the same political beliefs with, or other beliefs with, but still be able to find commonalities or have productive conversations, find a way to collaborate together and so forth. And really looking at that piece around really grounded in civic engagement, and really looking at that piece where acknowledging that there's been pretty divisive rhetoric last several years, that also when we talk about serving the community or engaging the community or creating a vision for the community, that means the whole community, and not just those that are in our circle or we get along with, and this and that. And so that's sort of the basis of Bridging and Belonging as an initiative, and just coming together to listen to each other, understand each other, and collaborate. It's not about changing people's minds. It's not necessarily conflict resolution. It's just finding some commonality. And so this is an initiative that they essentially provided as a curriculum into this theory with AmeriCorps members, and are then supporting them in implementation, trainings, being part of a community and practice and so forth. And it really ties into that piece where if you look at performance measures and you look at some of the outcomes for AmeriCorps, we always see that AmeriCorps members say that part of what they got out of their service was they feel better dressed, they feel more prepared to address community needs, to be able to reach out to members of their community, to handle conflict, to develop community solutions and so forth, and work with more diverse communities. And so this is really just kind of another next level of equipping them with those tools and working within this theory. It's very grounded, as I said, in civic engagement, and I wanted you to be aware of it because I think we're going to hear more about it in the future. And as we move into our state service plan development and the Civic Health Index report, which I'll be talking about here in a few, this has a lot of relationship, a lot of connection to that, because it really kind of speaks to how we may do community engagement and tools for ourselves, and making sure that we're reaching out and covering statewide community. It also is something that there's some opportunity. There's already some chatter in Oregon, but it's also happening with the national initiative for this potentially tying back into essential employability skills and certifications and credit for service as well. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. I am the contact at the commission for this and have been chatting quite a bit with the people at Service Year who are implementing this. In collaboration with AmeriCorps and the White House and Ask. This year, they've opened it up to all AmeriCorps members, so doing some of the communications for that. And I can also share out curriculum if other commission members would like to see it. May have a little bit of a presentation from representatives at the October 11th meeting as well.
Great. Any questions or comments? Again, that information is in the packet. And then any general legislative state updates?
Yes, I said I was going to be quick on bridging. I wasn't as quick as I wanted to be. So let me keep going. So really wanted to share a few different things. You'll recall that I had invited for an education visit Senator Merkley during the August recess. That didn't pan out. Last Tuesday, time flies. I think this was last week. Last Tuesday got an email from staffers that if he could come and visit Metropolitan Family Service on Friday. So they were fantastic. They pivoted very quick. They said, okay, let's get ready with this couple of days notice. And it was just really great to see that when he was in town that week that they circle back with us, and we're like, yeah, we really want to visit if you're all up for it. So Metropolitan Family Service hosted Senator Merkley and a couple of staffers, myself as well, to share more about their Climate Corps program, which is electric waste work. And this is where AmeriCorps members are in partnership with Portland Clean Energy Fund and through funding of the Inflation Reduction Act, basically providing outreach and education and support services to credit challenged, low-income community members, historically underserved communities to access the resources of electric vehicles, electric bikes, and so forth. So that can include qualifying for loans, rebates, credits, different things like that. And so they were able to share that work that they were doing, and electric vehicles is a passion project of Senator Merkley. So he's very excited to hear about that. They were also able to share some challenges, which is that there aren't enough charging stations in Oregon. And there's actually been a bit of a slow rollout of getting Inflation Reduction Act funds out across the country, actually, which is meant to get more charging stations installed. So they've got a lot of interest. They're doing a lot of great work. Those are some of the barriers that they were able to share. Really great visit. They also had a 2-year, second-year AmeriCorps member with the program there to share more about the benefits of service that they're seeing, their excitement about this program. Also a little bit about, some questions asked to emphasize stuff around, just a stipend, or also they talked administrative rate and the act and so forth. And so really great visit. He had said that it was his first time meeting a Climate Corps program and seeing someone implementing, funds from the Inflation Reduction Act, and was really just excited about that. I learned a lot about electric vehicles that day. It was very cool. So just really happy to see that. And we followed up with some information about other Climate Corps programs in the state as well. I also wanted to share, so that was a positive. A little bit of a negative that I'm going to share is that I do want to confirm that we don't have any bills going forward in this next session, and what that impact is going to look like. I can elaborate next meeting as well, but I want to share that the concepts that, officially there's no concepts going forward, so we're not able to acquire any additional state funds for supporting capacity building in Oregon of nonprofits, which one of those is relating back to that admin cost. The challenges there. But another thing is that we do not have not received additional funding per our request for establishing our volunteer services position, which means that we cannot provide capacity building to rural programs. We cannot provide grants for development of volunteer programs, which are can be part of a huge backbone in rural communities for services being provided, emergency response, and so forth. And our Governor Volunteer Award, Service Enterprise, any of those initiatives, we are not able to move forward on without that position. And as you saw in the last state service plan development, that was one of the major themes of what we heard, especially with underserved rural communities and so forth, is the need for that resource. And on top of that, I do want to share also that ARPA is expiring at the end of this year for us, which also means that because we did not get our concept was not able to move forward for our disaster services position, that we are looking at a challenge of keeping that position in place past June of next year, or at the least with, as a full-time position. There is some great work being done there. The emergency response software is being adopted by, I think it's around 27 community partners right now, many volunteers. This is a big resource for them to manage volunteers during an event, just get to implement preparedness activities, to coordinate recovery activities. We're doing, there is some partnership development that's happening with the Department of Emergency Management, where they're going to help out with some capacity on this, managing that system during an event, whereas their staff are able to serve or able to work during events outside of regular hours, where we're a little bit more limited. So we need some partnership with that software, administering that software during times we wouldn't have. So that's really great to see. And that is all part of because people are recognizing that this is a really important community resource, and especially important to local communities, small nonprofits, and even, government emergency response managers. So we would love to see that keep going to the extent that it is, and not see that important work interrupted, but as of right, and be able to further, meet our responsibilities as a responding partner for the state's emergency response plan. for coordinating national service resources and spontaneous volunteer resources. But that is now under risk because of ARPA ending. So I wanted to talk about that. I think that'd be great for the board to think about and continue those conversations around supporting those things, but we can save that for a future meeting or executive committee. But I just wanted to kind of set up for thinking about when we're talking about what our goals and priorities are for the next state service plan or any education visits, giving you some more context around things that are happening for us. I have 10 minutes left.
Thank you for that update. And yes, disappointing to hear the bad news. Any comments, questions related to legislative state updates? I was looking for you on the news, Carrie, because they did interview Merkley, but it wasn't while they were at MFS, I don't believe.
Oh, really? I'm still waiting for photos. It's like people don't believe it happened if I don't have a photo. I haven't gotten one yet, but I'll share it out when I get it.
Great. Okay, so like I said earlier, we are shifting our agenda just a tiny bit. Casey will hopefully be joining us at noon. So we're going to move into discussion items. First discussion item being policy development and the approval process. And do we have any, we don't have anything specific in the packet, do we, as it relates to that?
Follow up.
Okay.
So there's 9 minutes before Casey comes on. His presentation is about 15 minutes with questions and with a meeting ending at 12:30. What I could do is save the October meeting agenda draft to just like share what, that till after his presentation as part of the closing, and just use the 10 minutes or 9 minutes we have now to address the request to bring some context back to this process with some examples. And then you could follow up with the other approval items next meeting if you wanted to do it that way.
That sounds like a good plan, unless others have thoughts about that. That sounds good to me.
Okay. So I shared out, don't I? Actually, I just put a document in I'm putting the form in since I didn't put it in the packet. So the draft template I just put back in the chat. So for context, I had submitted last week for just to start some conversation and some thought partnering around our processes for making sure that we're transparent and equitable and thoughtful around how we are developing and implementing policy. I get a lot of questions from staff of which ones should we give to the, should we go before the commission with, and which ones are like, do we not have to? And I had shared that back when we were transitioning agencies and we were meeting monthly. I don't know how we were doing that. It didn't seem that big of a deal, but now I'm like, wow, how are we doing that monthly? But we were there was a lot of operational updates, and we sort of had some guidance from the board that all of that doesn't need to always come to the board, bring high level stuff and so forth. And so I just wanted to revisit this and eventually get to a place where we have an agreement on what, or some guidelines of what comes to the board, because especially as we're implementing DEIA processes, this is very much rooted in that. And I think it needs to be revisited. The documents that I had put together for you and shared last time were a policy proposal document that a board committee, a board member, a staff member would run through and fill out and basically describe the policy proposal that they're putting before the board for recommendations for approval. The form is informed by the HAC in the state of Oregon and AmeriCorps DEIA lenses. So the questions are really rooted in asking, like, who is this going to impact? Who did you talk to about this? What are the expected outcomes? How long would this be in place? Any challenges? And then the other forms were where they would document any public comment that they sought from the affected communities. And the final document would just be a way for it's sort of more like a guiding document to the board to say, these are the things you might, would probably want to ask and document as you're like discussing approval or not, or asking for it to go back to the drawing table or whatnot. So then what came out of that last month was what do we mean? What kind of things would possibly be part of this? And so that's just where I was asked to report back this week on examples. So the examples that I would share would be, one would be that per statute, the commission can retain 2% of the 5% budgeted admin in a grantee application. So it's essentially a fee that it's called the commission admin fee. So it's essentially a fee that we can charge for administration of the grants. So it would be additional money that we would collect. But it also means less money that they have in their limited 5% admin, that which we hope goes up to 10. We in the past for years only took 1%, and then about 2 years ago decided to stop charging that because we felt we could get by without it, and it was a burden to programs. If we were to consider, especially in the future with budget cuts expected, possibly, if we were to consider wanting to reinstall that commission admin fee, that is a perfect example of a policy that we would bring to the board and want to bring to the board. An additional one would be something like obviously our grant making priorities, where we would establish our, I guess, hierarchy, you could say, for funding. So is that based on community served, based on priorities of governor, et cetera, et cetera. So that is something we would want to, and how certain ways that we might implement that could follow in line with this. Grant making requirements. So, not getting into things like the monitoring schedule or when people turn in progress reports to us, but if we were to make decisions or want to implement policies that said if programs can only receive 2 3-year grants, and then we would look at addressing other community needs through funding other organizations, or if they've received 2 cycles of formula funds, they must and are required to then submit a competitive application to come out of the national pot of funding rather than our formula, which is limited and is where we would try to grow smaller, under-resourced programs and be able to expand their capacity. So those types of things seem pretty impactful and would make sense, in our opinion, to bring to the board. And one more other example would be placement of rural members. We're seeing that is very challenging when one member is placed in a very rural environment and the program host organization is in Portland or somewhere else on I-5, and they're in way Eastern Oregon. We're finding that is very challenging for them to find housing. It can be very isolating. It can be that many people may not complete their term of service because it's difficult. So if we were to say, we think you need to place 3 members together in a rural environment, that could potentially be a burden on a program. We probably should, evaluate criteria for if that's fair to ask of someone. So those are the types of things that we see as being different than operational. With operational, like I mentioned, being things more like, reporting dates or progress report dates, or what our questions might be in progress reports and things like that. So I don't know. I think I would probably just ask you to think about that we can come back to this in the future, but this I think is worth trying not to rush through it. But some other things that I would add are that one way to look at this, if we're challenged and thinking about where the threshold is maybe we'd be seeking guidance or looking for some support from the commission board on establishing some criteria around would we bring it forward because it does support strategic goals, or there's a yes to a specific question on this form. Those might be some ways that we could determine, I guess figuring out what is operational and what should, meets the level to come to the board. But that, yeah, I hope that additional context helps, and I'm happy to answer any questions for the next few minutes and hear from you. Any experience that you have with this, or suggestions from the board on next steps.
Carrie, do you foresee this would be something we would bring to the October 11th meeting as well? as follow-up for follow-up, or
Yeah, I think if you have any recommendations or any requests that I could follow up that way and then make those for your approval at the October. And can you approve things for like, let's approve this for 3, 4, 6 months of implementation and then report back? You know, prove it maybe as like a pilot or something. I think those would be some options, wouldn't they?
sure. Does anybody have any thoughts around that? Well, I can just speaking personally, I would say if you feel, unless you get some, maybe give us a little bit of time to look through, see if there's any recommendations for this document itself. If there are, please share those with Carrie. And then if it would be useful to try it out for 6 months, 9 months, see how it works. I'd be fine with that. I don't know if how others feel about that. Because as we've spoken in the past, we don't need everything coming to us.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. And so this could help with that.
Yeah, so I would definitely appreciate it if anyone in their, other board service, organizational service, or whatnot has, something similar. Any other like similar tools or ways that you implemented something like this? We're not trying to be like heavy in checklisting and documents and things like that, but things like this do show and communicate to others that we did go through these steps and this is important to us, and kind of create some muscle memory on like the types of questions and things we want to evaluate. And so I think it is important to have some documented written processes to follow at the start. But again, we don't want to like overdo it with you all. So if there's anything anybody wants to share back that could help with further development of this, I'd definitely be up to receiving that.
Great. So please do take a look, see if you have recommendations, or as Carrie said, any prior experience with something similar. That would be very helpful. Just looking at time and looking back at our agenda. Carrie, I know. Oh, perfect. Perfect timing.
Now I can take a break.
Casey, it's good to have you join our meeting. I'm Heidi Echeverria. It's glad to have you here. And this is perfect timing because we were just looking at the clock and we knew you're going to join us at around noon, and just really happy that we're able to piggyback you into a couple of meetings today.
Well, I'll do my best.
Thank you. So here, you probably were briefed by Carrie. It's the state commission for OregonServes, and we're really excited and looking forward to hearing a little bit about your work and your presentation.
Sure. And I'll
A little bit more too, if that's okay. I asked Casey to join because I know people were very interested to hear more about the National Service Advocacy Academy that ASK has created and is running. And Kyra mentioned that last meeting. As you know, as commission board members, you have some limitations around different things, but Casey and I talk a lot. We're on a few committees together, so he's pretty aware of Oregon's particular, guidance and restrictions and so forth. But I thought it'd be great if he could come and just share a little bit more about that, because I know there was a lot of interest, and I think despite where some of the limitations are as private citizens, these things can be very helpful in your civic engagement practices and education visits and so forth. So I think so he has that context, and is just going to share more with you about the different resources, and answer your questions. And I need to give him sharing ability.
Yeah, that would be great. And while she's doing that, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Casey Reynolds. I'm the state policy manager at OregonServes Commissions. So my job is to work with state commissions to help them with any policy initiatives they want to get going, help them know about what other states are doing, either with legislation, executive orders, or other policy development, as well as to put things together or develop their own policy initiatives, or to help do that kind of outreach to their legislature or their executive. Let's see. I think this is right.
I see it.
You see it?
It's not your yeah, now it is.
Okay. And I'll also say before I get started, I always love joining this commission as a native Oregonian. I was born in Prineville, and my whole family lives in the Dalles Hood River area, and I'll be out there in a couple of weeks. So I'll always love the home turf there in Oregon.
Well, keep coming back. You have an open invitation as an Oregonian.
Yes, I'm definitely taking up on that.
Last week, Kyra, the executive director living in Eugene, we're like, we've got the end.
Nice. Yeah, our ED Kyra, as most of you probably know, lives there as well. So our National Service Advocacy Academy. So what our National Service Advocacy Academy is, it's a program of ASK's arm, which is States for Service. States for Service is our policy advocacy arm. It's not funded through any grants or government funded. It's strictly membership based, so it can actually do direct advocacy. And so if any of you were members, you would be able to take advantage of any of those resources. And as part of that effort, we created our National Service Advocacy Academy. What this is a training program to help all of you or any of your supporters in the state know what you need to know to be able to go out and do your own advocacy to elected officials and their staffs to help get whatever your particular agenda, whatever sorts of things you support, to help make those a reality through the legislative process. So I'll take you through it here just a little bit of background. This was funded through a grant we got from the Balmer Group. It was very generous from them. We used a vendor called Congressional Management Foundation, who does a lot of online training, helping people connect with Congress. And so we had them develop a program just for us. That's an online platform to help provide this sort of training. The program just started earlier this year. Our first cohort started in April 1st. So it's kind of a fairly, at this point, we've done 2 full cohorts. So it's not brand spanking new, but it's still pretty new. And participation is free to all States for Service members. So if you or your organization, program or commission is a member of States for Service, then a certain amount of those apply to you as well. So a little bit about a vendor. I'm not going to cover much on this. Congressional Management Foundation is a well-known 501c3 nonpartisan group that does training to help people connect with their elected representatives. So this certification program consists of 8 modules. Each module has about 3 to 4 videos. Each of those modules collectively take about 20 to 30 minutes. So each video is about like 8 to 10 minutes generally. The whole program takes about 4 hours of total time is what we're seeing. At the end of each video, there's interactive quizzes just to make sure participants understand what was presented. We can take up to 200 participants at a time, which is not, we've been having about 70 or 80 at a time. So we have plenty of capacity. We have materials that are branded for States for Service, and our cohorts begin every 3 months. What this is, the reason we do cohorts every 3 months with a requirement that once you're enrolled in one of those cohorts, you have to finish the program within 90 days. We did that because of feedback from a lot of different groups who have done these sorts of trainings, who all told us if you don't put a time limit on it, it tends to slide and they just don't, and they'll do 6 out of the 8 modules and then never actually finish. But if you put a time limit on it, people are much more apt to go all the way to the finish line and actually complete the whole thing. Now, the nice thing about this being an online platform and the way we've structured it is it really allows you to do this on your own time scale when you have time. And that's really helpful because I know, and I think this probably applies to Oregon, we have a lot of commissions where either the staff or their commissioners have regulations about not being able to do this sort of training or these kind of activities on their official time. And so this allows you to do it at home in your own time. So you're not running afoul of any rules or regulations. It can be done 100% on your time, where nobody can tell you what you can or can't do. So it's really nice in that way. So here are kind of what the modules are. The first module is just a basic introduction to advocacy, telling you things like how to research your issues and what lawmakers need from you to understand how to make policy decisions. This module is just kind of a very basic intro into advocacy. The next module is how to build relationships with lawmakers, introducing you to ideas like having an ask. So when you go in to meet with a lawmaker or their staff, you should have something you're asking from them or that you're asking of them. And so how do you prepare for that ask? How do you cultivate a relationship, a long-term relationship with lawmakers or staff? And I really kind of harp on the staff component, because a lot of times, particularly at state legislatures or even in the executive governor's staff, the staff people are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So if you develop a really good relationship there, number one, a lot of times those staff stay longer than the elected officials. Sometimes they're career people. So if you develop a relationship, it's going to be around sometimes a lot longer, but also they're the people who are really in the weeds and doing a lot of the nuts and bolts work. So developing, you don't just focus on the legislator, developing relationships with the staff is important as well. And so this module kind of walks you through some of that. Then we have a module on preparing for a meeting. This is where I see in the commissions that I work with, there's a lot of stress around this. Calling up and getting a meeting with a legislator isn't that hard of a concept, but there seems to be a lot of stress around, okay, I've got the meeting. What do I need to bring with me? What questions do I need to be, prepared to answer? What things should I be pitching? What should I ask? There's all kinds of stress around now that I have the meeting. What do I actually do at the meeting? So we have a whole module just around preparing for that. Then we have a module on crafting your message. When you go in, what should you be saying? And overall, over the whole advocacy period, how to understand how to put together the different elements to support your argument, develop your message. We have a whole module on that. Then we have one on actually conducting the meeting. Like when you go in, this is actually how the meeting's going to work. You're going to sit down, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to sit down. You're going to make sure all the people in your party have been introduced. You'll have already figured out who's going to talk in what order and who's going to present what information, who's going to do the ask, because sometimes some of the people in the meeting might have regulations that bar them from lobbying. So maybe they're not allowed to do an ask. So you don't want to get to a point where you're in the meeting and the legislator is bought in, but nobody does the ask because half the people in the room legally aren't allowed to, and the other half don't know it's their responsibility to. So the ask never happens, right? So like actually conducting the meeting, like how is this going to work and how do you get through it? And then what to take away from the meeting and how to gather that feedback to disseminate to your group so that everybody's on the same page. And then we have a module on advanced strategies. These are kind of the next level up, like doing letters to the editor, or maybe showing up to legislator town hall meetings or finding other places where you can engage them outside of just a sit-down meeting in their office. Some other tactics and tips for how to develop that relationship and how to follow up and keep the relationship fresh and keep it developing. And then we have two modules that we had specifically developed just for national service that we worked with Congressional Management Foundation. These are tailored just specifically to state commissions and programs in national service. Specifically, one is a history of national service. And we felt this was important because a lot of people today, even ones that are involved in national service or even commissioners who sit on these boards, don't understand the background of national service. And that's really important when you're going through some of these things, because I've even seen it where 2 or 3 supporters of national service will be arguing about something. And what they don't realize is they have 3 different visions of national service based on 3 different eras of when national service programs were created. You know, when the earliest programs were created around the New Deal time, like the Civilian Conservation Corps, those were employment programs that were targeting unemployed people to put them to work and to allow them to develop skills. Then in the 60s, when the Kennedy and Johnson administrations came around, I created Peace Corps and Vista. Those were poverty addressing programs that were really targeting new college graduates to serve. And then when Bill Clinton created AmeriCorps in 1993, that was primarily targeted as a way to help people pay for college through service to their community, right? You're going to give them an education award, help them to get access to college and pay for college by doing a year or 2 of service in their community. So these are completely different visions. And so if you don't understand who some of the players were and how some of these things developed, you might, and we see this with legislators too. Some legislators, they still think of national service today as what it was in the 60s when it was being pitched. And so it's helpful to know that you're having a disconnect there, and maybe you need to explain, okay, so we're kind of talking about 2 different things. So we have a module on that history and background. And then we have a final one we call contemporary issues in national service. This gives you an up-to-the-date understanding of what's going on at the federal level, both with the budget and with legislation. We have things like the PSA. I don't know if Carrie has passed that along to you. It was just introduced, or the CORE Act. We have what's going on with the federal budget each and every year. AmeriCorps gets, either a budget increase or a cut, or let you know where that stands. We also let you know what's going on around the country, what kind of pieces of legislation we're seeing pass state legislatures, what programs we're seeing created, and kind of what those trends are. So the idea coming out of this module is you'll have a comprehensive understanding of kind of the lay of the land today with relation to policy in national service around the country. You'll have a general idea of kind of where everything stands. And so by the time you get done with all of that, you should have a pretty good idea of both how to go out and actually start engaging elected officials and their staffs, and where things stand in terms of policy. So you should have a good kind of foundation built to go out and advocate for the things you want to advocate for. In terms of participation today, we've had over 125 people registered for the Academy. I think we just had our 87th person actual graduate. Our 72 have graduated, 87 have participated in at least one module and completed at least one module. It's taking about 3.5 hours on average, so that's right about where we wanted to be in terms of the time commitment that you're actually making to this. We didn't want it to be too much, but also if it was too little, then you're really not getting anything out of it. So we felt 3.5 to 4 hours is a good line. And the next cohort begins October 1st. So if any of you are interested, or if you know people that might be interested, October 1st is when our next cohort starts. So it's perfect timing to get in right now. And then in terms of, as I said, the Academy is free to anybody who's a States for Service member. So I just wanted to give you a breakdown on the kind of the pricing and the slotting for that. We have in red, I highlighted where I think Oregon has a commissions only membership for all of the programs in your state. And so what that means is you have 3 free slots. So either commission staff or commission members, up to 3 of you can take this for free, no additional cost. You can just do it per year. So if this is our last cohort of the year, obviously, so 3 of you could do it now, and then you would get another 3 at the beginning of the year. But just so you're aware, we have other pricing structures where we have the top level is for commissions that they buy a States for Service membership, both for themselves and for every one of the programs in the state. So that means their commission would get 3 people who could go through the Academy, but then each of their programs in their state, 3 of their people could do it as well. And so you see the pricing structure. We base it based on how many programs you have in your state. So it goes all the way from 1,000 to 3,000, depending on how many programs you have. And then people can join as individuals or as programs. Programs or commission partners can join for $150 and you get 3 slots, or you could join as an individual for $50 and the academy would come free with your membership. Or if you're a young professional or service alum, you can join for $25 and obviously get the academy that goes along with that. So that's our National Service Academy. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, if you're interested, you can just email me at the email that's on your screen there, Casey at statecommissions.org, or you can go to our website, statecommissions.org, and we have a link there where you can sign up for the academy. So if there are any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Casey. What an exciting opportunity. We heard about it briefly, and so we're so happy to have you and learn more about it. Is that Greg? I'm interested. I know, right? So I wonder how we can coordinate this best if we have 3 free. Maybe we can collaborate with Carrie on the 3 for this October 1st. And then again, do you know, Casey, will you offer it like January, February again, or?
A new cohort starts every 3 months. So
Every 3, okay.
it'll be October, January 1st, April 1st. And we're going to be doing it all through next year. So yeah, every 3 months.
Great. That's
And
very exciting.
If you all have access to Basecamp, which you should, we posted it to Basecamp. So, and there's a link there where you can register as well. So you can just check out the posting in Basecamp.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or anything for Casey? I wish I had this a while ago. Like I've done a lot of lobby work and work with, meeting, but I didn't have any training going into it. It was just sort of like throw you to the fire. So I'm curious about the training too. Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions?
I have question and a comment. Thank you, Casey, for your great presentation. Also great to hear that you're from Central Oregon. I am also a Central Oregonian. But I guess the question is more for Carrie for logistical items though. Should we coordinate with you? That way you don't get, this would be great if this happened, but like 6 people showing interest and then we have to decide who the 3 are. And then is it the 3 free spots per year? So maybe we can coordinate a strategy so that we can get basically the whole commission at some point trained up. I would be interested, but also like Heidi said, we kind of, sounds like we already went through this training, but more of like on our own and learning from experience. But knowing that in the near future, we're going to have leadership transitions. And as we welcome more commission members, it's really, I think, a great opportunity for like the chair to definitely take this training. And then for the chair of the public policy committee to take this training as well, just that way that they're all trained up on the same path, because everyone comes with different experiences and we might have learned different things at some point. But just comment, question. And then for you, Casey, at the end of this training, do members receive a certification, a badge, anything that they can display on their resume, LinkedIn, any of the above to say like, hey, this is a skill I learned, and not everyone knows this skill as well. I think it's really important and unique.
Yeah, you do get a certification. You'll get emailed a certification certificate. So yes, you do, once you complete all 8 modules within the 30 or the 90-day period, yeah, you'll receive that certification.
Great. Carrie, how would you say we should proceed?
Yeah, that's there's a lot of people interested beyond the 3. I know that just from now and last meeting. Yeah, and for the record, we do have, yes, the commission membership using non-match, non-federal, non any way related to any sort of unallowable type of funding to be a member of this. But we do have a membership and it allows for those 3. I don't take up any of the 3 because I pay the $50 for my own membership. I think we'd probably have more like 5 or 6 people. So if people aren't interested and they're not part of the 3, they do have some other options, but it'd be great to probably have a fair way and a intentional way to decide who, how those that access works for those three. I agree with Daniel that I think representation from executive committee and chair, public policy chair, and so forth, I mean, makes a lot of sense. And I maybe can follow up with Casey or Kyra to see what ways, what options would be available for us to maybe have like a staggered thing. Again, if somebody is like, okay, but I was going to go ahead and pay myself $50 and like get access to it, I mean, they could do that too. But for the three that would come under this, like, yeah, I think I can follow up with Casey and talk a little bit about maybe some ideas too for like what our options are for maybe staggering membership so that, you know, people that want access and would like it to be covered could do that.
Well, like I said, this is an annual thing, so you could have 3 people start in October and then you get another 3 in January for next year.
That's how it works. Oh, well, that seems
So
like
yeah, but then you wouldn't have any more after that. So if you had like new people coming on the board who you want to do it after that, they would either have to wait till the following year or if they're alumni, it's only $25. So I don't know if there's some of you are alumni, it would be cheaper that way too.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Yeah, I have some thoughts and can put together a structure for sure that I'll bring back.
So knowing that the next cohort starts October 1st, the question would be, because I see Shanika and Greg, you're both interested. Would you be able to do October 1st? That cohort?
I know Sierra is interested. I don't know her availability. She's the chair of the public policy committee.
Okay. So it would be wise to put Sierra in that mix if she is available as well. As Daniel was like, I would love to do it, but I'm going to defer to others because I've been thrown in the fire. So I would just propose that Shanika and Greg, if you're available that October 1st, seeing that you're interested, and Carrie, can you reach out to Sierra?
Yeah. Greg, do you want to be one of the three or do you want to?
I'm happy to pay my own way if there are more people that want to go and take those 3 slots, but I am available for October 1 and would be happy to jump on it.
And then Daniel, what were your thoughts?
I don't know about my availability on October 1st. If I do, I'd probably pay it through the alumni and pay it out of my own pocket as well.
Sounds good. So we can follow up with Shanika, Greg, and Sierra.
Okay.
I can go either way as well. I am open on the 1st, but I can also go either way if other folks want to go ahead.
Okay, we'll follow up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah,
for-
it's not, Casey, it's not, you don't have a group sitting here going like, oh, that's thanks, whatever, we're not interested. You've got for the office.
We were interested in our last meeting or meeting a couple meetings ago. So, good.
So I posted in the chat the link. So if you're one of the 3 people who's going to be doing it, you can just register right there. And you don't have to do it by October 1st. So if you do it on like October 3rd, we'll put you in the cohort. You'll just still have to have it done by December 31st. So don't worry about that timing too much.
Super. Thank you, Casey, for joining us. You hit your quota for the month.
We've been doing, I got to tell you, this has been very popular. We've exceeded the number of people we thought were going to want to do it by a lot. So it's going pretty well.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Wonderful. So looking at time, we have 2 minutes and we need to talk about our October 11th agenda, correct? Okay.
Yes. As much as you can talk about it in 2 minutes. It is there, it's in your packet. That's the idea of it. Sorry, let me get the document. Hold it.
So, and just a reminder, this is an in-person in Salem at the HEC.
So this is in person in Salem at the HAC. Essentially what we did is we, this is like part 1 annual meeting, broke it up. That's the second part of it. And it's an in-person, first time we'll have met in person in years. first time any of you will have come to our new HEC building. So if you can make it, that'd be great. It is a longer meeting, which I know that some people, you know, may not be able to attend the whole thing based on work hours or availability. So you can pop in it out as need to. But for those that attend in person, there will be refreshments, lunch, working lunch, etc. There will be a hybrid option. It's a hybrid meeting, so you'll also have video link. If you could follow up with Kelly after this meeting and let her know if you are attending in person, she's good. We'll start coordinating lunch orders and things like that. What we've got so far on the agenda is I will be presenting that piece around where we're at on the state plan progress. Additionally, we will have guest speakers from the National Conference on Citizenship who are going to be preparing the Oregon Civic Health Index for us through a partnership through Ask. And essentially, Oregon has not had this report in many, many years, but this is going to be based on data that will be coming out that comes out through AmeriCorps and others in November, and just really shows us, you know, what that looks like as far as volunteerism, civic engagement, community outreach, and so forth. This is really going to be helpful to inform the state service plan. And I think we'll use the state service plan contractor to actually help with some of the authorship in some of this. It also, there are a lot of community partners that have been wanting this to get sponsored and happen, who will be able to bring in to also and expand our community outreach to the state service plan. So a lot of really exciting stuff happening with that they'll come and speak about. On the agenda items for discussion and approval, we'll have follow-ups with some bylaw revision pieces. We're making recommendations for the updated commission policy and procedures, looking at 2025 meeting calendar, especially in coordination with legislative requirements, our biennial report requirement, and things like that. And then a little bit of training from Kelly on just signing into Workday, seeing, you know, where your stuff is that you need to access, like accessing trainings, your I-9 forms. She'll share with you also travel reimbursement forms and things like that. And just we'll talk a little bit about sort of then next steps on timeline development framework for then state service plan. Do some member recognition. We're going to have some new like pens and vests and all that kind of stuff for you all. So that's another reason to show up, but no, we'll mail it to you. And then, yeah, there's a little bit of room for if you would like additional guests. A couple of things I will mention is that we have also talked about wanting to discuss land acknowledgement and how to ensure that we're not being performative with land acknowledgements and other things like that. And I didn't get that on here, but I'm wondering if there's something, I definitely want that to take up time, but I don't know if there's any thoughts people want to follow up with me on around like any speakers around that or facilitators around that. Please let me know. And that's that. Or if you would like a program visit or whatnot, let me know.
Thank you. And I think Kelly or someone had asked for us to confirm whether we're going to be in person. So definitely please do that so that we can have lunch orders taken care of. Yeah.
And if you, before you jump off, just want to put it in the chat, she can get it from there. And then she just has the rest that weren't here today to follow up on.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't do my job very well, but
Right.
we
Look.
had some really good, exciting, interesting things happen. We'll keep this open for a little bit if people want to put, they'll be there in person. I will be there in person. I look forward to seeing everybody in person. But thank you for being here today. We can adjourn at 12:32. And then we'll re-adjourn for our next meeting on October 11th. And thank you everyone for being here. Those of you doing the Ask Service stuff, I'm excited to hear how it goes. Sign up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
team. OregonServes team, thank you for all of your coordination too. All the links, all the documents, all the things.
A lot of links today. Good stuff.
And I was hoping I might go to the kickoff. I'm not going to make it to the kickoff in Kaiser, but if anybody is available, it would, like you were saying, be great to get some of us if we're available to go. That is October. Remind me of the date.
That's the 21st. I'm going to send out a follow-up about that too, because I think there's some opportunities for volunteering if you want. And also, I was going to ask a few different people if they want to do a panel. Again,
Alumni panel is needing folks. So yes.
like opening speaker is the bike bus guy. Do you all know the bike bus guy? Coach Balto from yeah, that's going to be really fun. And one of the things he did was get an electric bike donated to raffle off to an AmeriCorps member. So
Wow.
Cool.
and so you know, kudos to Priscilla for all of the coordination she's doing.
Good job. That's awesome.
But
Great.
look at Coach Balto bike bus on TikTok if you want to see the videos to that. It's really like feel good stuff. So yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's great to meet you all.
You too, Susan. Congratulations. We're happy to have you join us.
Thank you. See you in person
Yeah.
very soon.
Yes.